Most of the time on this show, we have interviews, and I will bring on authors and speakers and athletes and musicians and all kinds of different guys and sometimes gals to just talk about what it looks like to be, the best parents that we can be. And then sometimes every now and then I just like to get on here and kind of ramble a little bit. So that's what today's episode is. If you want, to go back and listen to any of the interviews, obviously we have hundreds of those, but I thought I would just take a minute and kind of share stuff that's going on in my world. And hopefully it helps you process your own journey of becoming the man that you feel like God's calling you to be for yourself and for your wife and for your kids. But I remember we had just had kids, Layla and I. We were brand new married, and I think we had just had our second. We have 4 kids now, but we had just had our second. And so they were probably, I don't know, like 2.5 and 6 months old. And one of the pastors I was working with at the time, I was just constantly complaining how tired I was. I was just like, there's no way this is real. Like this has to be like an anomaly or something like that. I'm absolutely exhausted. I'm not sleeping. I was also trying to be a very engaged dad and not let all the weight of, sleep and feeding and nighttime changes and all that stuff fall specifically or solely on Layla. So I was like trying to get up, and I was just so tired. Every day I would go to work, he's like asking me to get into meetings and, brainstorm stuff. And my brain was just not working. And I remember him kind of looking at me. That I have like a really vivid memory of this. He was kind of looking at me, and he was just like, basically, he wasn't being rude. Like, I didn't feel like he was being rude, but he's essentially saying like, dude, this is only going to get harder. Like, you are in the easiest part of parenting there is with 2 little kids. And he said that. And again, he wasn't like trying to be mean or rude or condescending, but I was just like, there's no way this gets harder. Like, this is literally the hardest thing I've ever done. And maybe I was being a baby about it. I don't know. But I remember the early days of parenting, just when there were toddlers and infants and newborns. I'm just like, this is so hard. And I'm probably just a baby when it comes to sleep. And so that probably made it harder too. But anyway, he was just like, this is going to get much, much harder. And turns out it has. I have 2 sets of kids. We have a 14-year-old and a 12-year-old and a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. So I will say I'm in like some weird seasons of life where I'm having some very deep, like heavy life conversations with my preteen and teen. And I'm also helping with the bathroom and washing hands and brushing teeth for my newly 4-year-old, So I'm in like these 2 really kind of polar opposites, what it feels like. And I will say with the older set, with my 14 and 12-year-old, I will say that season of life, that of parenting, is so much harder than when the little ones. Obviously the little ones are hard. It's hard for different reasons. And you know this, if you have kids, like, obviously staying up late and getting up in the middle of the night and help keeping them alive. Like little kids are just constantly trying to kill themselves. So just keeping them alive is really, really hard. But emotionally, for a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old, it is so much harder. And hopefully I'm not discouraging you if your kids are not in that stage yet. You're just like, wow, appreciate that, Jared. Thank you. But the reality is like, again, like he did to me, like this pastor did to me, it is really, really hard. And it's only going to get harder, I imagine, as they start to get closer to leaving the house. And then even leaving the house. I remember, dude, if I could go on a little bit ADD side tangent here, as I often do. I remember when I turned 18, my buddy, he was a little bit older than me, had just got an apartment. And so he was like, hey, why don't you come live in this apartment with me? And my mom was at work. I had just turned 18. My mom was at work. And so I grew up in a single family home. So it was just my mom raising me, and my sisters were older. I was a little baby boy. So my mom's at work, and my friend says, you should move in with me. And you know how like, this is especially true for my personality, but especially I think for teenagers, I'm just like, okay. And I literally packed up all my stuff, which wasn't much, put it in a car, drove over to his house, and just moved in within like an hour. And I called my mom, and I'm just like, hey, I'm moved out, and she's like, what? I mean, she told me in hindsight, she told me later, that she just like she cried for days and days and days, that she just became an empty nester unexpectedly. She wasn't expecting me to just move out all of a sudden. And at a time I had no idea. I'm like, why would that be a big deal? This is great. I get to go move in with my friend. And now as a dad, I'm just like, could you imagine just your kids ripping your heart out like that? Just like, hey, I'm leaving. Sorry that you raised me for 18 years and I've been in this house every day of your life for 18 years, but all of a sudden I'm going to be gone. Just no concept. And so all that to say, like, I think it just keeps getting harder, which is kind of discouraging as a parent, because you're like, surely this is going to get easier. And of course it gets easier when they're out of diapers and car seats and things like that. But just to tell you straight up, like if you don't have kids in the preteen or teen years yet, it seems to just keep getting harder. And I think for you as a dad, here's what I'm experiencing, and this might be relatable to you. What I'm experiencing with my preteens and with my teen especially is what's getting harder is to connect relationally. I remember so specifically, I'm going to try not to get emotional here. I remember so specifically with my firstborn, who's my only boy, him being a baby. And I remember the day that he was old enough to roll a ball. And that sounds probably like not a big deal, but that was an emotional day for me, because I remember it was the first time we could actually connect by doing something together. I'm going to really try not to get emotional here, because he's my 14-year-old son now. It was the first time we could do something relationally together. I'm totally like hard mind over mattering, because if I think of my 14-year-old son as a baby and the first time we connect, I'm gonna lose it and I won't be able to get through this episode. So the first time he rolls and we relationally connect, and I remember we could do something like, for a mom, they're like breastfeeding and they carry the baby, and it's just, it's a whole, they're bonding in different ways. But for a dad, he rolls a ball to me and I can roll it back, and he gets joy and I get joy. And I'm just like, dude, this is insane. And so you're able to connect relationally in pretty simple ways. I mean, we're just rolling the ball back. And then as they grow up and they become toddlers, they want to do everything together. I have a 4-year-old now who literally, she says dad probably 100 times in an hour. Dad, look at this. Dad, look at this. Dad, look at this. And as frustrating as that is sometimes, it is beautiful that you can connect in that way. Like they're wanting to connect with you constantly. And then in my experience, what I found is when 12 hits, that massively changes. For both of my kids, when they hit 12, my older kids, when they hit 12, there was a big shift in the ability to connect relationally easily. I can connect relationally pretty easily with my younger kids. With my kids who are 12 and 14, connecting with them relationally has become much, much harder. And for you as a dad, you might be thinking, I have to work to provide for this family. You're constantly, as much as moms are talking about how they have this, what do they call it? I'm totally blanking, but they're thinking all the time. They never stop. There's a phrase that moms use, and I'm totally blanking on it. Comment on this episode if you know what I'm trying to say. But moms are constantly carrying mental load, the mommy mental load, something like that. I don't know what the exact phrase is. As much as that is talked about, and I believe it's true, I think moms are thinking about doctor's appointments and their health and what are they going to eat. And like they're just kind of this nurturing, caring presence, as they should be. And they do such a great job. And I know moms are carrying a lot. My wife carries a ton. Even today, I had to walk her through all the heavy things that she's carrying right now. But as much as that's true, also for dads, I think we quietly carry, dude, a lot. We are also thinking about financially, am I going to be able to provide for this family and keep a roof over our heads and make sure we have money in the account so that we can eat and buy groceries? And also, are we safe? Is everything locked up and are we protected? And what's it going to be like to raise daughters? And how do I make my son make sure that he's a man of integrity and a solid man of God before he leaves? Like, dude, most dudes quietly are carrying a lot of stuff that they'll never talk to anybody about. Will never know how to fully articulate all the things that they're carrying. So you have all that as a dad. You're carrying all that. You're working. You're trying to be a good husband. You're trying to deal, if you listen to this podcast, with your own sin and repentance and make sure that you're not letting sin easily entangle you and get out of the old habits and become a new man. And out of all that, and with all that, then somehow you're supposed to connect with your kids relationally, which means you have to slow down and actually get on the floor and wrestle with your kids and play some Legos and throw a ball in the backyard or hold your kids or take them on a walk or a bike ride. And I know that might sound simple to a lot of people, especially if you're not a parent, but as a dad who's busy and working and carrying all the things that you're carrying, it's actually really hard. It's really hard to do all the things you're supposed to do to provide for your kids and then intentionally connect with them and to see how their hearts are doing. And again, as younger ones, it can be easier if I think of and I'm intentional about like, okay, I need to connect with my kids relationally. I can take them on a walk or a bike ride, and that seems to fill their tank and it works. But when they get 12 and 14 and older, it seems like even if I'm intentional, trying to find the time to actually connect with them, to once that time actually happens, it's not always as productive and it can be really, really hard. And to try to, again, add another layer to it, make them a little bit more like Jesus or to help them understand the things of God, to lead them in a devotional or a Bible story or any of these things. It's just like, dude, this feels really, really hard and sometimes impossible. And I'm just going to be honest with you, as I've tried to be on this podcast every week. I've been feeling a lot of guilt about that. One of the things I feel guilty about is that my kids, my older ones, I think my younger kids take so much of my physical energy, especially at night. Just bedtime routines is so hard that when I finally get them to bed, dude, I want to just crash. Like, true story, it is 11:14 a.m. in the morning as I'm recording this. If I turned this off and went and laid on my bed, which I record this in my bedroom, if I went over there and laid on the bed, I could for sure fall asleep. I'm just always like ready for a nap. So I get the kids to bed, the little ones, and then all I want to do, dude, is just fall asleep or just have a minute of quiet, have a little bit of connection time with my wife. And what I've been feeling guilty about is my older kids, like they don't want to go to bed at 8:39. You know, they're older. They want to stay up, watch a show, talk, play a game. And what I've been feeling some guilt about is not really having this connection time with them, this good, intentional, relational, fruitful connection. And so I've been feeling a lot of guilt about that. So we went to Arizona this last week, and we ended up getting this Airbnb with some of our friends from back in Oregon, and we shared the Airbnb with them for a week, and it was so fun. And kind of on a whim, we were just supposed to just stay at the house and swim in the pool and kind of eat together and spend time together, which was awesome. But kind of on a whim, I was like, hey, we should go do something adventurous and fun. And so I ended up reaching out to this company called Arizona ATV Adventures, and I just want to give a shout out to them. This is not sponsored or anything. This is not an ad. I just want to say, like, they are such a cool company. I ended up connecting with the owner and talking to the owner there, who's a dad, and the tour guide, who's a dad, and just good dudes. Like, customer service was awesome, experience was awesome. Again, this is not a paid ad. I just want to give a shout out to them because they were so awesome. If you're in Arizona, you should definitely check them out. Arizona ATV Adventures. But anyway, we had a big group. There were 11 of us. So they split us up into they're called UTVs. So there was one with four, another with four, and then two with two two-person ones. So me and my son ended up riding one together. And keep in mind, I've had for the last months, if not year, just been feeling like I'm struggling to connect with my 14-year-old son on a deep level. Like, sometimes I feel like I'm just, we've talked about this in past episodes, like I'm the sheriff, or I'm just constantly giving him rules or like, do this, don't do this, why'd you do this, that kind of thing. And connecting relationally has been more challenging. And so anyway, we get in these UTVs and we ride around for hours on these things. And dude, we're just laughing and we're having so much fun. And he's like, we're climbing up these mountains on these things and he's scared. And then at one point he gets to drive and he feels kind of nervous about that, but he overcomes it. And the amount of like relational equity that we built in a 4-hour trip by driving UTVs was worth more than probably all the times I've tried to or missed out on in the last year. And so where am I going with all this? I know I'm rambling, as I told you I would at the beginning. There's a verse, you guys know this verse. I'm going to put it up on the screen. I've talked to you about it before. I've shared it in books, but there's a verse in Deuteronomy that I think is really helpful. It says this, Deuteronomy 4:6-7 says, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. Love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be on your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk on the road and when you lie down and when you get up." And this is for many, if you listen to any podcast or you on parenting or you read any parenting books, this verse is almost inevitably going to come up because there is this idea that in order to connect with my kids relationally and spiritually, I have to have these kind of set, beautiful, deep conversations about the things of God with our Bibles open, and we've got commentaries. And I've just never, literally, I've been doing this for 14, almost 15 years now as a dad. I've never had that moment. And still in my mind, I'm thinking like those moments are going to happen, or it's a one-day thing, or, maybe I can kind of create that. And what I've always found is that the best moments where I'm connecting with my kids and we're talking about the things of God in a really real, practical, tangible way is when we're just like doing regular life. And that's not to say that we skip out on Bible studies. We try to read the scriptures as often as we can. We go to church, we study the Bible. But the real like connection, the times where I'm actually applying these scriptures to real life in real relationships with my actual kids is always in the mundane as we're sitting, walking, talking, eating, driving UTVs. And I was just reminded this week that's like, dude, I just need to have more relational time with my kids. It's not these like big fancy moments where we're like doing I've talked about it here. We're trying to do these rite of passage stuff with my son, and it's like an everyday study, and it's good material. It's fine. But dude, nothing beats just literally spending quality time with my kids. Doing something where I'm connecting with them at their level. I like my son, like many 14-year-old boys, got into the Xbox, which I hate, and I fought it forever. I don't play video games. I never grew up as a gamer or anything. But one day I was just like, dude, show me how to play this like soccer, this FIFA soccer game. And we sat and we played it for an hour. And dude, I hated it because the controls are so much more fancy than when we were kids. I was playing like Nintendo 64 back in the day, and I could somewhat get that. But the Xbox is just like so much more challenging. And there's a part of me that like wants to be competitive and figure out how to do it. And then as I was sitting there, I was like, dude, just literally just sit and be on the couch and let him teach you how to play the game. And he could have done that he had so much fun with me doing that, driving these UTVs. We have a gun range down the street from us. I signed up so we can go shoot guns together. And we'll go there for like 30 minutes. You can't do that for hours because ammo is ridiculously expensive. But you know what I mean? Just like finding these really easy ways. I got this electric bike that I can put the kids on the back of. It's just like simple relational ways. And I'm always finding that I overcomplicate things. That what my kids really want is just like a little bit of just fun time. And that builds the equity, that builds the relational equity so that I can teach them inevitably, like almost 100% of the time, when we're on these casual, mundane, everyday, just kind of fun, little adventures or little moments of connection, almost inevitably there is a way for me to talk to Jesus or bring up the things of God, whether it's in my own heart or theirs or the world around them. There's almost always a chance for me to talk to them about the things of God. And it's very natural and doesn't feel forced. And so I guess what I'm getting at is this is what I'm encouraging you to do and think about. Like, I know you're thinking as a dad to provide for your family, to work, to get the money, to get a roof over their heads and connect with your wife and deal with your own sin and all that. And also just like find relational time to connect with them. I think, dude, and this is me as one dad struggling to another struggling dad, I think this is probably the things that they're going to remember the most. And you know this. I know you know this, but it's just like another reminder today to just try to get you to go back to like the everyday moments. And these will be the most fruitful moments of your parenting journey and relationally with your kids. This is what Jesus did. You know, when Jesus was making his disciples, you think about Matthew 6:28-30. He said, "Why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. Yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith?" Again, he's using lilies to talk about the kingdom. Or in Mark 4:35-41, on that day when the evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And the other boats were with him. And a great storm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. And he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said, "Teacher, don't you care that we're perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And he said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who is this? Who then is this that even the wind and the waves obey him?" The idea is that Jesus was using storms and lilies, and he just did this all throughout the New Testament. He's just using like the world around him to teach his disciples what the kingdom is like. And I think for us, I've talked about this before, I know, but just as a reminder, the key for us as dads is to use the world around you to point your kids to Jesus as often as you can. And sometimes that's a bike ride or throwing a ball in the backyard or going on a cool UTV ride or whatever it is. But I think if you're really looking to talk to your kids about Jesus and you're looking to do it in an actual productive way where they can really receive it, and they're going to receive it because they know you love them and you're with them and you enjoy them, you just got to do like the relational stuff with your kids as much as you can. So I want to end with just this kind of last thought. Jesus was constantly using mundane little moments to teach his disciples. We see in Deuteronomy that he teaches us as parents to use the mundane, everyday things of life to teach your kids about God. While you're eating or drinking or sleeping or walking or whatever you're doing, to teach your kids about the things of God. And I just want to say this: like, you are also a son of God. And we know God's reputation, as we see in Deuteronomy and as we see in the New Testament, how he discipled his followers. We know this is God's reputation. And so it's likely that God also wants to get your attention. He also wants to disciple you and draw your heart near to him in the mundane moments. Keep reading your Bible. Download the Bible app, as we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Hear the audio Bible, get into the Word of God. You must read the Word of God so you know his reputation and what his voice is like. And then wait or listen or be attuned to in the everyday moments how God is wanting to parent your heart as a man. And it likely will happen in all the moments that you didn't expect, in the same way that I didn't plan on having these deep relational moments with my kids. They just kind of happened as we were going along. God is also going to capture your heart and teach you things as you're going along. Like when you are at the grocery store and you feel frustrated or stressed about how much money it cost, or when you're at work and your boss says something that you didn't find very helpful, or your wife says something that kind of pierces or you want to have some bitterness towards, or you're driving and that guy cuts you off. All these little mundane everyday things. Don't miss the fact and the reality that God is probably going to use those moments to shape your heart, to make you more like his. And this is just his reputation. This is what he told us to do as dads. This is what we saw him do when he walked here on earth. And it's what he's still doing. He is going to use all these very mundane, normal moments of life to try to draw your heart closer to him. And so for you as a man, it's to become aware and attuned to ask God, what are you trying to teach me in this moment as this guy cuts me off, or as I have this hard conversation with my boss or my wife, or I'm at the grocery store and I feel stressed, or this bill shows up and I don't know how I'm going to pay it. Like, God, what are you trying to teach me in all these things? Because I promise you, based on his reputation, he wants to use those moments to try to teach you something about him and his kingdom. I hope this is helpful for you as you try to be the man that God has called you to be. I love you, brother. Thanks for listening. We'll talk soon.